Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Milsurp World, the podcast all about military surplus. I'm your host, Aaron, and with me today is Danny.
Hello.
All right, our topic today is going to be a little bit different. Danny, why don't you bring up what we're going to be talking about?
Okay, so we are going to talk about popular culture, its effects on the gun market, mostly having to do with like video games and movies, and how they affect the firearms market through like or playing a video game and seeing a particular gun in that, and then wanting to buy that gun.
Right, I think we've all been there before, right?
Yeah, yeah, I definitely have for sure, including recently.
Well, I would tell you that the one that I remember was the original Call of Duty. Now, this is not any of the new ones. This is like Call of Duty 1 from World War II. And I really want, and I still do, I really want an FG-42.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. I think I played the original Call of Duty as well, and the old Medal of Honors PC, not the ones like on PlayStation original or whatever that was. But I think that made me want an M1. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, I remember the original Medal of Honors. Yeah.
Me buy the M1 first. I think I was sold on all the lure of the M1 Garand. It's like this holy rifle, to the U.S. Milsurp collectors. It's a very elevated in status type of gun.
And more so than really anything else than I can think of. Maybe the 1911.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. I think the M1 Garand is even more so, even if it's higher above that, because
But
we don't.
I would say like if you put them together, like it's like this is the best thing ever created. Group of people that'll be talking about it.
Yeah, it's that patent quote too. I did a video on that patent quote and about how it's sort of overblown, cool sort of gun. So it's in a lot of movies. You can't talk about it without talking about Saving Private Ryan, those type of movies, and seeing famous actors using the M1 Garand. I know people are going to criticize the way we're pronouncing that, but
I'll call it Garand. You call it Garand.
Garand, yeah, I know. It's like there's this recent revisionist with the M1 rifle, and it's just now called the rifle how John Garand pronounced his name. But I still say like either way is fine.
Well, we had this
World War
discussion
II.
with the Mannlicher, and Mannlicher is like a bastardization of it because it should be Mannlicher,
Lisha, I think.
Mannlicher, and
Or Lich. I think it's like a Lich sound.
So if you're gonna say Mannlicher, it makes no sense because it should just be saying Mannlicher because that's how the straight
It's
up
how
English.
it's spelled.
It's the
It's
straight
the
up
anglicized
English
version.
So
And it's funny, all the people that criticize you for not pronouncing it, like they don't speak that language. Like they're going to criticize you for the way you pronounce something in German, and they don't speak German, or they don't speak dialect of German. So
right,
it's kind of
so
funny.
it's similar to that,
But,
and that it's like, okay, does it really matter? The point is getting across anyway.
Yeah. So I mean, I just had to say that because I know people are probably listening and hearing us say M1 Garand, and they're cringing, and I think it's okay either way. I think if you're going to say that's wrong, then you're saying the vets are wrong, and I think either way is fine.
Yeah, I don't think it really matters. But moving back into our topic at hand, popular culture is very influential, and that can't be denied. And I think that originally video games didn't have as much of an influence as they do now, because the people that were playing them, especially like you're in my generation's age, I just turned 30 and Dane's a little bit older than me. We grew up playing these games, and now we have disposable income to be able to buy the stuff that we saw in these games and used.
Yeah, that's very true. With Red Dead Redemption 2, most recent guns that I've purchased I bought a U.S. Krag rifle, a double-barreled shotgun, actual like with the bunny ears, and it's 12 gauge and everything. It's kind of a neat gun. It's made by Tula. Looks like, if you just looked at it, it looks like it could be an old American shotgun or whatever, but it's kind of neat. I like the made in USSR on it. And then the most recent one is a Remington rolling block. And it's not like the exact one, and it could be because it's the 1897 model, which I think 1896 could have been around at the time of Red Dead Redemption 2. But those are the last three guns that I bought, and it's crazy because they're all in. But I swear I only bought the double barreled because of Red Dead. the Krag and the Rolling Block, I just bought because they were good prices and like I was at the right place at the right time.
I've never actually bought anything that I had seen in a game or used in a game because I just most of the stuff that I would like to have, like I said before, the FG-42, and actually I really enjoyed the DP-28 from the Soviet Union in Red Orchestra. Do you remember that game, Danny?
Yeah, I played the second Red Orchestra. I never played the first one. That's true. You know, those games, I think they make you want to buy the unobtainium guns more, or at least the guns that you're not going to buy unless you become like a doctor or something. But that I really wanted to buy from Red October, from Red Orchestra was P-34 and MG-42.
Oh, yeah, I mean, but even back whenever I was younger, that was obviously not going to happen anytime soon because even I knew back then that was insane.
Yeah, they do make semi-auto ones, based on the Yugoslavian ones. It's like it's doable if you wanted to get a semi-auto one, but dude, I would kill for a legit full auto MG-34.
It would be quite fun. I've also really, if we're gonna get into some really ridiculous stuff here, I've also always wanted a 55 caliber boys anti-tank rifle.
Oh yeah, I think you told me that before. Yeah, you wanted something like that.
Yeah, I don't know where that came from. I don't know if that came from a movie or a game, but it was just like I've suddenly decided I've wanted one day, and I was just like I need to get one. But I've never had, what is it, like $4 or $5 lying around to be able to buy one.
Yeah, if that's all it is, that doesn't seem terrible. What's
No.
how much does a T-Gewehr go for?
Oh, I don't even know. I don't even want to get into how much that would even go for. That's probably much, much more rare.
Yeah, that's great. I've only seen one of those in a museum. You know what? Speaking of movies that influenced guns, or maybe this is kind of an interesting case. I think of using a movie to try to sell a gun, and that's something I've noticed particularly at gun shows. Ago, whenever those M9130 snipers were coming in with the PU scopes on them.
Yeah, yeah.
I remember seeing particularly at one show a guy that was showing off the Mosin sniper, and he had an actual copy of Enemy at the Gates, like next to the gun, and like the movie went with the gun. He was just trying to be like, hey, remember that movie? This is a gun from that movie. Wouldn't it be cool to own? A cool thing of maybe a gun seller trying to use a movie or pop culture to help sell a gun.
Yeah, I can't think of any examples for the U.S., but like definitely like you see like iconic stuff like associated with movies like a MAC-10 and how that gets translated to an Uzi, which it really isn't an Uzi, but it's just an iconic firearm from a film. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Hmm.
Well, this is a weird topic. It just got me thinking about this. Like, what's the worst grievance for you when it comes to movies and firearms? Like, what's the worst thing for you? Like, what takes you out of the movie whenever something happens with firearms?
Oh, if I see like more than like 6 shots or something out of a revolver, depending on the exact type of gun, really does it for me. Like when I was watching Open Range, Wasner in it. That's a really good like Western movie. And they tried to be really realistic. And like you could watch that movie, you can count like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then he reloads with his revolvers. But there's one scene, the what is it called when you like flick the hammer with your other hand and you shoot rapidly with
fan.
Yeah, he wanted to fan the revolver to shoot, and he shot like 10, 12 rounds or something like that out of his revolver.
It's horribly inaccurate too. It's something that's just really showy for movies, but from what I've seen with like people talking about it, it's like a really dumb way to fire a revolver.
Yeah, I've never tried it. I have no idea, but it looked really cool. But he fired way more rounds, and that was like, that kind of took me out of it. And then there's another part of the movie where, and this kind of goes with all movies that do this. In Range, there's like a part where he shot through a wall with a double-barreled shotgun, and it blew the guy like away, and he like literally like lifted off the ground and went across the alley and slammed into the wall of the other building. It was kind of like, if you think of physics, like if it's pushing that other person that hard, it's going to push the shooter back, and then nobody's going to shoot a gun that recoils that hard.
No,
but like
but just transfer of mass. If it's a slug or a pellet or whatever, it's not gonna. It's not like it's gonna shove a person that's getting hit by it, like you see in movies or whatever, where people just like fling themselves backwards or whatever. Even with handguns, even they do that, and it's literally just going to just transfer all the energy to a person's body, and they're not gonna drop. They're not gonna fly backwards. They're just gonna fall.
Yeah, I've heard it with in regards to handguns. I've heard it talked as like you're basically poking someone with like an ice pick. Like whatever diameter your bullet is, that's the diameter of the ice pick you're poking them with. It's just poking holes in them, you know.
Right.
But did you ever see that? It's a Bruce Willis movie, Last Man Standing, 1911s.
No, I don't think I've seen that one.
That's like a fun movie to just like suspend like reality and just like watch, because he gets like 20 rounds out of like each 1911, and like when he shoots people they like just literally like come off the ground and fly away.
Well, see, that would immediately take me out of it because you can't get more than 2 rounds out of a 1911 before it jams.
Yeah, yeah. So you just suspend reality and watch it like for fun, and that's kind of cool. But yeah, that's kind of one of the things now, like take me out of it. If I see a gun, like if it comes to modern guns, if I see a gun and like the sight's on backwards or they're not holding it like correctly, you're like, oh, here's a recent one. I'm watching The Punisher season 2 on Netflix.
Yeah.
And I forgot what episode I'm on. I'm not through with the season yet. I saw a picture and it's of the Punisher, and he's instead of holding it like with his offhand, like instead of holding it with his offhand, it's like propped against up on his forearm, and he's like running and shooting with it on his arm. And I was like, oh damn it! Like they ruined it, because like nobody shoots that way. You always hold the gun with your left hand. Like further on to that episode, and it showed that he like broke his hand or something, so he couldn't actually hold it with that hand, so he had it propped on his arm. And then I was like, oh okay, like that made me feel better, like they did
Nice.
sort
It's
of
like
keep
they
it
actually
realistic.
thought about it.
Yeah, yeah.
So something that's a pet
Yep.
peeve for me, Danny, and I'm sure you've seen this too, is something I never noticed, and I'm sorry, I'm going to ruin this for everybody. But if they show in a film or a TV show the sniper rifle, and they show you from the perspective of the scope, they always put the center of the crosshair, whatever target it is. That's not how scopes work.
Yeah, that's very true,
There's a
huh?
thing called gravity and bullet drop, and you're gonna always, if it's a far enough away object, you're going to need to aim above whatever you're shooting at. But they always put that crosshair right in the center of where they want to shoot, and they always hit perfect. Now, always hitting perfect, whatever. It's a movie. I can just spend minutes to sleep for that. But like, there's bullet drop.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's how scopes work. Yeah, you use the bullet drop like compensators that's on the. That's really. Oh yeah, man, I didn't ever thought about that. You
I'm
ruined
gonna
it.
ruin it for everybody, but like it so bugs me because
Hey, Ron.
you'll see it in so many movies now. It's just like, yeah, they put the scope dead center, and it's like you're gonna hit his foot or you're gonna hit the ground.
Oh man, yeah, you ruined it. Thanks a lot, man.
Now the other things, we talked about, like something that takes me out is, and I don't see this as much anymore, but like you see, like there's been episodes of MythBusters where they do this, where they like hide behind cars and stuff like that, and they put mannequins or whatever behind cars to see if they're bulletproof, and they're not at all.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think about that sometimes too. Yeah.
It's like you would think it would be, but really, like the body of a car is nothing. There's not much there.
Oh yeah, it's mostly like hollow.
Yeah, so it's like, yeah, and an exception could be like a politician or a police officer or whatever. They could have like some kind of armor in the doors or something like that. That I could see happening, or like some kind of like specialty glass or something like that. But even then, even bulletproof glass or whatever is not rated to sustain shots continuously, like you see in the films. It's gonna fail eventually.
Yeah, I think it depends on the type of. I've seen like advertisements for bulletproof glass where dudes like shoot it with like an AK like a whole bunch of times and bulletproof glass, but it seems like you could shoot it a lot. I'm sure it does have a failure point. Oh, have you seen Bodyguard on Netflix?
I have not, no.
With The Bodyguard with Kevin Costner and Whitney Houston. The show Bodyguard, it's British. I think it's like the BBC did it in cahoots with Netflix. Really good show, but there's a scene on YouTube, like this particular scene, where he's in the car and he's bodyguarding this like high up British politician, and the car is getting shot like in the windows and stuff like that with and every now and then one of the rounds would go through the window, like the window would fail, and but it wouldn't go through the like the non-windowed parts because that was armored like a lot more than the windows. And watched it, I was like, oh, that's so refreshing that it's so realistic. Like that was an amazing scene in the show.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. I always find it fun
But
to. Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say I always find it fun when you're watching these movies, especially since I now have a more understanding of just firearms in general, and I now being able to recognize them more often than I can before. Just to go back and watch older movies and see like, oh, what is that? Oh, that's an SKS, or is that like what the? Why do they have a BAR? You know, it's kind of like what in the world? Like the one that does it for me is if you go back and rewatch the Rundown with The Rock. Like they're in South America or something like that. I don't remember what it was, Brazil or something. I think it's Brazil. And the bad guy is who is that? Christopher Walken. His like gang all has like old U.S. military surplus stuff, and you'll see the standard AKs or whatever, but you'll see like a couple of guys have a BAR. There's a couple of guys with SKSs. There's a couple of guys with Mausers, and you're just like, this is kind of neat because it was like this is obviously a ragtag like gang of people that don't have a lot of money or whatever to spend on like a professional army or whatever. And it's like these are just you guys are using surplus stuff, and it was kind of neat to see.
yeah, that is really cool. Yeah. I mean, that sounds a lot like what you would just find especially in South America with Mausers.
Well, and U.S. stuff too, because the U.S. supplied them with a lot of stuff.
That's refreshing. Hey, here's a gun that every time I see it on like in a movie or something, I go like, I got to get one of those. An MP5. Every time I see an MP5 in a movie or something like that, like I always go like, oh, I want that. Like I got to have that, especially for that HK slap.
Oh yeah. Man,
that is really cool.
That's a gun that's really kind of fallen off in terms of like visibility in popular culture. Like you don't really see them. They were like all over '90s action movies.
Oh yeah, that's a hardcore like '90s gun, and it's definitely it's fallen off a lot. You don't see them a whole lot.
Those
anymore.
were in Die Hard, right?
Yeah, that was one of the big two guns. Used in Die Hard by Bruce Willis.
Yeah, that's when he says, "Now I have."
Yeah, the '92 bred in '92, and the MP5.
Yeah, because he does that. Now I have a machine gun, ho ho ho, and he's stolen an MP5, right?
Yeah. Oh, and then in the movie Predator, what's his name? I forgot his name, but the character that's in that, he's got an MP5. Like dies, but more spoiler alert, he dies, and he's like shooting at the Predator, whatever, the MP5, and his like arm falls off, still shooting the MP5, and that movie definitely made me want to get one. The only reason I haven't gotten an MP5 by now, semi-auto only subguns seem a little silly to me.
Yeah.
Also, they're very expensive.
Yeah, even
they always are like $1,500 or something like that, and for the money, it's like I could get so many cool guns for the money of a knockoff MP5 that it's hard to get it. But I really hope Palmetto comes out with theirs. They were talking about making one, I think last year. They're known for making affordable guns, so I'd like to see maybe if they could pump one out for. Maybe I might get one. And shooting Gage's full auto MP5 in my video, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it looked like it was pretty fun. Now that had the full stock on it,
right? No, that one had the sliding stock.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what that stock is called, but it pulls out. Pretty sure.
I don't remember. I'd have to look at the video again.
I should know. I shot the damn thing, and I watched it. I watched the video, but. Yeah, it's something. Yeah, I think it was the sliding stock, the collapsible stock.
So you've kind of reminded me of something, and it's something that has kind of become kind of popular to do. When you talked about reproduction, there's a lot of companies out here that are making reproductions in 22.
Yeah. I think that is happening mostly for legal reasons, and then also there's some like economics behind it. So a lot of the replicas in 22, like say the the MP40 replica in 22, and then the STG 44 replicas that are in 22 made guns. And they can't import those in the regular calibers. They import those in 22 in order for it to be importable. Or they can do, and then they're cheap, right? So you import it in 22. 22s are really easy to make. You just basically make a fake, body for the 22 that looks like the original gun, and then there, it's cheap, it's easy to import, and they're foreign made. But the MP40 9mm that they're importing now, that's only because laws for importing pistols are more lax than for importing rifles. So they can import the MP40 as like a pistol.
Right. It's kind of like a weird loophole right now, right?
Yeah. It's been that way for a long time. For whatever reason, you can import pistols. So like you see some weird stuff. Like you would never see something like a full SIG 550 rifle being imported, and if it is, it's going to be like chopped up somehow in a parts kit or whatever. But you can see a SIG 553 quote unquote pistol being imported, and it's just the commando length gun without the stock on it. That thing legally a pistol, and then it's, then you can import it.
Right, but if you put the stock on it, that makes it illegal, right?
Oh yeah, that's one of those things where you could put it, you have to do your well, I guess you could put a brace on it and then it'd be fine now. Like braces are awesome. I never would have like done the SBR probably if like braces existed back when I like did my SBR. But if you can just put a brace on the pistol, and then it's still a pistol. You don't have to worry about 922R. But I think if you SBR that like SIG 553, follow the 922R compliance laws with the parts count, and then that gets a little silly.
Yeah. The laws regarding pistol versus rifle is a little bit, I would say, muddy is more clear than it actually is.
Oh yeah, it's pretty terrible, man. Like it's crazy that the United States prides itself on like freedom and firearms ownership and whatever. That's like what we say. But then like it's literally easier to import a gun if you're Canadian.
Yeah. Heck, even Australians I've seen, like they just fill out one or two forms and you're done.
Yeah, that's Canadians don't have a whole lot to be jealous of. But one of the things I'm jealous of is how they could just import like crazy Chinese whatevers, and that's just ain't no thing.
I know, like I've seen the SKS from China in there, like they're $400-500 guns here now, and there's in Canada it's like $200 or $300.
Yeah, that's. I think we blocked off the importation of a lot of Chinese guns.
Yeah, so you can't get the Chinese reproductions of the trench shotguns anymore.
I think those are still pretty cheap. I've seen the 1887 lever action shotguns.
Yeah, well then you have the pump actions like the Winchesters, remember?
Yeah, but Norinco makes. I've seen Norinco 1887 pump action shotguns for still like 300, something like that. I don't know if that's underpriced or if it's more now, but
I've never
too
seen
expensive.
them under $3.
Maybe I should have bought it then. That last one that I saw.
The reproduction of an 1897, right?
Yeah, and I bet the main reason why people want to buy both the 1887 and the 1897, going back to our topic, is movies. Particularly, you got a lot of World War II movies use the 1897s, and then using the 1887 and Terminator. It's just iconic.
Oh yeah. I totally forgot that was even an 1887.
Yeah, like I'm pretty sure that like that's the only reason why, unless like somebody or like old time Winchester collectors or whatever, or just shotgun enthusiasts or something like that. And I bet most people that buy like an 1887 or 1897 are just like guys that are buying it because they saw it in a movie,
right?
Or in a video game. Wasn't the 1887 in Call of Duty or something?
Well, the 1897 was in Battlefield 1.
Oh yeah. Yep. Going back to Battlefield 1. I bet that game got a lot of World War I guns sold.
I would think, and I'm going to give it a lot more credit than probably and I don't know for sure, but I've seen a spike in M95 rifles, M95 regular rifles, and M95 30s, and all the variations of the M95 in the last 2 to 3 years, and there's been nothing else that I can think of that features the M95 rifle as prominently as Battlefield 1. So it's the only thing I can think of that has been pushing it into the public sphere of thought.
Yeah, that might be. It's really good, pretty good in Battlefield 1. Back when I used to play that, I used M95 a lot.
Right, which is why
Um,
people like it gets in your head like, oh, this is good for in the game or whatever. So it gets you in your head like, oh, this is a real good
oh,
gun in real life too.
yeah. Now that I think about it, I can't remember if I bought the M95 because I played it in BF1 or not. The time I started playing that game, and I happened to find an M95 for like $250, and I bought it. I don't know if I bought it because of yeah. Hmm. Wow. Yeah, that might have done it for me. Huh.
It was weird seeing because I have an M9530, and it was weird seeing that in game because you haven't shot your M95, have you?
No, I keep meaning to. Yeah, I keep meaning to do it.
It's weird to see that in game when you own it, and it's weird to just. I'm sure it's weird for you, like with the Krag or whatever. Like it's weird to see, especially because you notice the animations where they just like they don't get it just right, and you're just like, that's not how that works.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, those reloading aim like they reloading of guns in video games is never about realism. Like they sometimes they follow a little bit of lines of realism or whatever, but about like video game balance. And they want a certain gun to have around the same reloading speed of other guns, even if in real life it's a lot longer.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's a little painful. Like in the game, whenever they in BF1 when they reload the SMLE, reload so fast and so smooth. It's like, geez, like nobody who's ever reloaded a Lee Enfield thinks that it reloads that easy or that fast.
Or really, any of the guns for that matter.
Yeah, none of the guns in games, or at least most games, none of the guns jam.
Yeah,
Um,
I can't think of any off the top of my head that actually featured any of like.
maybe Red Dead if they get in bad enough shape they jam. I think I'm sure it knows a game. I'm thinking of that they would jam and they had all sorts of little. Oh, the U.S. Army game they could malfunction.
Oh yeah, I always forgot about that. The one that they created for recruitment.
Yeah, yeah. I a whole lot, but I remember there was like a clear jam button.
It was America's Army.
Mm, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
interesting. I totally forgot about that game.
Yeah, but I bet the centennial of World War One and like shows like the Great War, Field One, the video game coming out. Like I think those really made the value of World War One guns go up. Or 98s, man.
Yeah, I'm sure the Centennial had to do with it as well as just like all the other cultural stuff you're talking about, and but it's also just like the G98s and everything else. Like the more recognizable guns become more and more expensive, then people are like, well, I'll just have to settle for this, which is World War One still, but it's not as expensive.
Yeah, that's true. And what is it? The economic law of like whatever, where like just one gun goes up will drive up the price of the other gun because that's
Well, I mean, we
yeah
saw it.
something.
You saw it during the scares where people were trying to sell M9130s for like $500, $600, just basic M9130s because people were buying out all the other guns, and so it was driving up prices. And then they're like, "Well, we need to buy a gun of some kind, so just buy this."
Yeah, that's always crazy, man. Speaking of the like the scares and stuff that happens, I was at a gun show today and I was talking to some guys about that, and we mentioned how 22 always sells out during the scares. That they're gonna pass like an assault weapons ban or whatever. 22 ammo disappears.
Now that
It's
you mention it, yeah, yeah, why?
it's pretty crazy because like they're never going to ban 22 ammunition. Like 22s are still legal in England. Like they might limit how much ammo you'll be able to buy or whatever, but like they'll never ban 22. And like that is always the first ammo to sell out, and it's always the one that like everyone hoards. And like you'll talk to people and they'll be like, "Yeah, I have 10,000 rounds of 22," and they'll still buy more. In the world would you ever want that for?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose that neither one of us have that kind of mentality, so that we just don't understand it. But like, yeah, I never thought about that. Yeah, whenever these scares always happened, it was always 22 is the first to go.
Yeah. I mean, I'll hoard certain types of ammo because like I know that I'll use it in the future. Yeah, like that's 22 that's a weird one with me.
Well, that's about all the time all the information we have on this topic today. It's going to be a little bit of a shorter podcast, but I did want to mention we do have an email address, milsurpworld@gmail.com. That's all one word, milsurpworld@gmail.com. And I have two emails here. We have our first couple emails, Danny. It's exciting.
Yeah.
This is from Dave, and he says, "Hey guys, just wanted to drop a quick note and say that I'm really enjoying the podcast. I just recently discovered it, so I'm only 3 episodes in so far, but I really like it. With all the thousands of podcasts out there, there's not much that I'm aware of concerning gun collecting and Milsurp collecting in particular. The most I've seen before yours is maybe a podcast like Handgun World doing 1 or 2 episodes on the subject. So I think it's awesome that you're doing a whole show on it. You probably get enough suggestions already, but I'll throw my 2 cents in. Would love to hear an episode devoted to Japanese Milsurps at some point. Just a suggestion. Just picked up my first Type 99 recently, as well as a Type 38 carbine, so I'm getting pretty interested in Japanese arms at the moment. Also, if anyone knows anything about the history and variants of the G43 or FN49, those would be interesting topics as well. Thank you. Keep it up." Well, I can tell you right off the bat, we're definitely going to want to do a Japanese episode with Andrew.
Yeah, we'll have to do that with Andrew.
Danny, do you know anything about the G43 and FN49 variants?
The FN49, a little bit. Only learned it when I was doing that the Egyptian video. So he might not know this, but I did a video on Egyptian military rifles, and I talk about the FN49 in it because Egypt bought a number of FN49 rifles. And then I also made a video on comparing like a mid-war and a late-war G43. I have another video of that on my channel. With the G43s, like they're all pretty rough. The most variation you get is with the markings that are on it. And then, especially Walther, very late in the war, they made some changes to it. And you can see that in my video. They drilled holes in like the piston cup, beat off some of the gas and reduce the force, because G43s are known for just like beating themselves to death with the violent recoil. So ABM, a lot of people buy those app filter kits and reduce the amount of gas that the gun uses to cycle to sort of keep the gun from beating itself to death. But yeah, Walther did a lot of little tweaks with theirs, and you can kind of see that in the video. There's variations of them that have like dual lugs and single lugs, and then there's variations with and without the little I forgot what the rail's called on the side of it that holds the scope. There's some, you can really get into it if you want. There's a collector grade publications book called Hitler's Garand. That's pretty good, and you can really get into those. But those guns have gone up substantially. Like, it is nuts now what they go for. I overpaid for mine like 4 years ago, and I knew I overpaid for it, but now it's good. Like, I got a good deal for it, which is, it goes back to that saying, like, you didn't pay too much, you paid too early in Milsurp. So if you're on a budget, you don't have a whole lot of money, like if you can't spend a couple grand on a rifle, you're probably going to want to get into FN49s. The Egyptian ones are the cheaper ones. I think Luxembourg 49, and those are a little bit more expensive. I think those are in 7mm. The Egyptian ones are in 8mm. Those are cool guns. The FN49, I think it just kind of came too late. I believe the FN49 was designed, it started to be designed in the 30s, the late 30s or something like that, and World War II interrupted it. Had it not been interrupted, that would have been a fantastic gun for World War II. Out as late as it did, it was pretty much outclassed as soon as it came out, because like magazine rifles that feed from stripper clips, even if it is semi-automatic, it's just not really going to be very popular. So, not saying that we won't talk about it more in the future, but I just wanted to cover those two rifles a little bit, tell you a little bit about them. The G43s are way more into, and I think Alex C from TFB said that the G43 was a very overrated gun. That I think people just like them because it's German, World War II, and whatever, which is a reason why I like it. Also, semi-automatic rifles of World War II, like, I think are kind of special, especially World War I. They're just there's not a whole lot of them, and they always have some weird, funky action to them. And I like how you can see the whole bolt cycle. Like usually on semi-automatic rifles, the bolt is kind of inside of a receiver. Look at it from the injection port. But with the G43, you get to see, or at least the bolt carrier, you get to see that whole thing slide back and forth. It's just a neat sort of looking gun. It's a neat action. It's not very practical. They're not great guns. They weren't really meant to be, service life rifles. They were just sort of like emergency guns. We need something other than bolt actions to give our troops.
All right,
type of guns.
Let's move on to the next email real quick.
Okay.
This is from Ronnie, and he says, "Hey, love the show. Hope you will have Will back on and his frogs." That's another fellow frog lover here, it seems like, Danny. And it says, maybe Danny can talk more about Swedish and German variants and Mausers like you guys did for the French. And would also like to know if all you guys have CNR license, and if so, how easy it is to get one of those. Do you guys only pick up numbers matching rifles, and what are good cleaning kits for Mausers? I can tell you that I have a CNR license, and I believe Sam does, and I know Will has a full FFL. What about you, Danny?
Yeah, I think Will had a CNR before he got his like regular FFL, whatever that's called. No, I thought about getting my CNR, but I don't know how it works, how the legality part of it works as far as like is out of your collection. I don't know if that's like kosher if you have a CNR and you took the gun in on a CNR. Because sometimes, like honestly, like I'll buy a gun and I'm like, oh, I want whatever this gun is, and I buy it and I go, oh, I am really disappointed that I bought this gun. It's not as good as I thought it was. I have like a rotating collection, so I want to like sell it and buy something else or maybe trade it. So if I took that gun in on a CNR, I don't know if I can.
And it's the common difficulty when it comes to this. Essentially, the way the wording is on the license is that a CNR license is only for collecting. It's not for profit, guns for profit. So the way they specify it is that if you're selling your guns to further the collecting, then it's typically okay. But if you're selling your guns for profit, then it's fine in terms of like it really depends on the individual that's going to be the ATF person that's going to be checking on you and what their interpretation of it is essentially. And that's where I could see where you're getting a little bit hung up on that. Is because maybe the guy that you have is going to be less strict about it than the guy that I would have. You know what I mean? But like,
yeah.
But like, essentially, the basics of the rule, and it's kind of vague because it always has to be vague. If you're selling your guns to further the collecting, then it's okay to do so. But if you're buying and selling solely for profit, like say you were buying, like say that rolling block you bought solely to flip it, and it wasn't going to be buying other guns with it, then it's not considered. That's not considered good for CNR. That you would need a full FFL for that.
Yeah, which I think that goes even for people without CNRs. Like, is allowed to buy and sell guns for profit unless you have an FFL.
Well, I don't think that's true. I think you can do that.
This is not legal advice, folks.
No, we don't do legal advice.
Don't hear this and believe us.
To answer his question, it's fairly easy to get a CNR license. You just have to fill out the form, send in the stuff they required and the money, and just wait. Essentially, it's government stuff. It's going to take a while to get back to you, but it's good for I think 4 years, right? I have a copy of it.
Yeah, number of years, $30, right?
Yeah, it's $30, and it's good for. Mine is good until March 1st of 2021. So I think it's 4 years is what it is. It's very handy when you want to have something shipped right to your door. It's very convenient in terms of that, and there's nothing quite like that actually getting a firearm shipped right to you versus having to go find somebody that will do it for you without trying to gouge you for the FFL transfer.
Yeah, I know from buying antiques, it is pretty awesome. Like the feeling to get a gun delivered straight to your doorstep. Can be a few problems with that.
Yeah, I know.
Like if you're not home,
it's a little awkward. And I've had experiences like that where they're not supposed to leave them there. They need an adult signature, and they just left it. And thankfully,
which is pretty nuts.
Thankfully, I don't live in an area where people steal stuff off porches as much, but it's still kind of scary.
you got a lot of porch pirates in your area, you probably don't want to have on your front porch for long and doing that. And so here's an experience I had with that. I bought an antique. I got an 1895 Mauser, a short rifle. It's an antique, so it can get shipped, straight to your door. And I didn't know it was delivered. And I open up the door and I see the box sitting on my front steps. I don't know how long it was sitting there. Box was open, and you could just very clearly look in on the side. It was almost hanging out of the box. The wooden buttstock of the Mauser hanging outside of the gun, wrapped. Like it wasn't wrapped in anything. It was just thrown in. And just it looked like it was just thrown in the box. And I contacted the guy I got it from, and I'm like, hey, like look at this, look how it came. And he's like, no way. He's like, I wrapped that gun up. It was in the box. The box was secure. So at some point, like somebody had to have gone through that box. Maybe it was somebody at the post office that thought somebody was breaking the law by mailing a gun. They opened it up and unwrapped it, and then maybe found out it was legal or whatever and still delivered it. But they didn't tape the box up and they didn't wrap the gun up. So had that gun been sitting on my front porch for like a very long time, I don't know how long it was sitting there, and somebody could just really easily look in the side of it and see that, hey, there's a gun in that gun-shaped box. One of those things you got to worry about with getting guns shipped to you in general, even if they're antiques, but also especially if you have a CNR.
Yeah.
As far as what he was talking about with doing an episode on Swedish Mausers and German Mausers, I would love to do that. I did a video about K98K evolution. I'd be totally down with doing a series on German Mausers or something like that, or doing a video on this about the German series of Mausers. I might have said that wrong.
No, I think you're right.
And then especially the Swedish Mausers, I've been like doing research, and I have this whole like thing that I've been writing down notes and everything about the Swedish Mausers. I've been planning on making a YouTube video on the Swedish Mausers, and maybe around the time I do that video, we'll do a podcast on it as well. Definitely love to do that. There's a lot of cool history with Swedish Mausers, especially just because of around the time and what was happening. Their development around the time that they adopted it. It's some pretty neat history going around that. So I would definitely love to do that one day.
That's a cool idea. What about his other question about do we collect only matching firearms?
I think it depends on where you're at and what your budget is. Like when I started out, I didn't. I just bought any Mauser like I could find. So if it was a German Mauser and I could afford it, I bought it. It was mismatching or whatever. Now that I've been in it for so long and I have a little bit more income, I typically now only buy and if it's a good price. I think Mausers are matching except for one, and it's a Russian capture that I have. It depends on if it matters to you, because functionally it doesn't really matter. It's still a German Mauser, still work and shoot and everything. However, I would describe a matching Mauser versus a non-matching Mauser as the difference between a cheap 1911 and an expensive 1911. 1911, like say with a Russian capture K98K with mixed parts, the 1911 was not fitted. The cheap one's not fitted. Parts aren't going to work together right. There might be some binding in certain areas. It's not going to be as smooth. However, with a really nice 1911, like a high-end gun, and with a matching numbers in fitted parts, the parts are polished and everything to work together, and shooting a gun is just a lot smoother, and it's almost audible, like an audible difference in a non-matching Mauser, and just in how it feels and how the action is smooth and how it works. I would say between the two, it's always more valuable and everything to have a matching one. But if you can't afford it, then I would say start with non-matching ones. But the point in my collection where I'm only trying to collect matching examples.
Yeah, neither am I. I really only care about function, and if it's functional and safe to shoot, then that's all I care about.
Yeah, and the thing is, if you own a gun like say you have a Mauser that's matching and it's pristine and beautiful, and then you have another one that's not matching and it's a little rough, get more enjoyment out of and take out to use is the non-matching one. You're gonna be able to take that gun out and shoot it, scratching it while you're at the range, and like that's the gun that you're going to get more enjoyment out of ultimately is the rougher gun. one is cool to have hanging up on your wall and to brag about or whatever, but you're probably going to use the less nice one more.
Yeah. Do you have any opinions on his last question, the cleaning kits? I don't really know.
Yeah, the sort of the ultimate cleaning kit for the Mauser, I think, is the tobacco can cleaning kits. Those are kind of cool because they have the little oiler in them. They have a pull-through chain and a little brush. Clean it. Pretty much, if you have that and some extra rags, you can clean, just about any Mauser with. Also, because I like Swedish stuff, Swedish little cleaning kits are pretty cool too. You can use the cleaning rod that's on your Swedish Mauser and little screw-on Swedish cleaning kits and with the screw-on brushes and everything that you can get. But probably the German one, and those are pretty cheap because they made them post-war as well. So you can get those for just about any gun.
That's all the time we have for today, guys. Thanks for listening, and thank you to everybody that's leaving comments on our YouTube channel. We do have a Patreon as well, and we do have a patron, and we'll get your name sorted out for the next time we'll do a shout out. I apologize, but it's been a little bit of a crazy time to get this last one together here, so we'll get your information. We'll get a shout out to you in the next episode. But if you guys would like to get shout outs or other potential benefits in the future, please consider joining our Patreon. It's a link is in the description below or in the description of the YouTube channel video. And I'd like to thank you all guys for coming.
It's patreon.com/milsurpworld. We appreciate it.
All right, thank you guys. Bye.